Yeah, I can hear you. What's up? Okay. Yep. Right. Cool. Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. It's actually, wow, yeah, this is great because I was thinking about what we talked about yesterday with SaaS, and I was thinking, why not make a SaaS out of this as well? So I was thinking that why not make this a Unity or even other game engine asset where we allow users to create a Twitch Plays version of their game where we kind of provide the server side, um, and they can create a Twitch Plays version using our kind of documentation and our server hosting, and it would be a monthly payment. What do you think about that? Yeah, we do need to get like documentation on how to use it too, and figure out pricing. Well, like because our costs go up per user, right? So like it doesn't make sense to be a one-time buy asset like most Unity assets, right? It wouldn't be like because would it be recurring cost for us if we acquire a user? So would their pricing be based on would the price increase based on the amount of use they have? Like right? Great. But what I'm trying to say is so yeah, we can upgrade the services and that should be expected with, if we get like hundreds. Let's say we get 100 users, right? But like with each single user, there's a price increase per user based on how long they use it or how much viewers or how much they actually have engagement. Like does what factors increases the cost per user? Okay, so it matters if a channel with 10,000 users daily, like compared to 100 user viewers daily, like there's different costs with those two, even if they use it for the same amount of time. Okay, gotcha. But that's for analytics purposes, I thought. Or okay, and this is for Twitch only, right? So we're not gonna have this on YouTube if we do bring this as a product, and yet I would say, but this is true for you for Twitch. Okay. And then the amount of time used obviously is the same concept because you just multiply that by how many requests per second, I guess, right? So, how much is it though with this channel of that size, like 10,000 users or viewers? How much do you estimate, like very rough estimate of cost per day, like a per hour, I guess, of usage? Y- $1 to $2 per use per, like, hour? Per month? But that's not using it for an entire month though, right? Like, we only used it for, like, 1 test for that entire month. Okay, gotcha. Okay. This one's a little more complicated because we would be selling this to the developers, not the end users. So, like, if a game wants to integrate our server, we don't know how many users they're gonna have, so it's hard to price this for that, I would say. I'm sure there's a model out there, but just something I would have to consider. Um, this one gets a little complicated. I don't even know if there's a interest or use case for this. I'm sure there will be though, because I think this might be kind of the next direction of games. Or at least one direction that games will be taking. I think we'll have live collaborate, or what do you call it? Like playing together live. I think is a very like we're early in the space. You already saw there's only like a handful of games out there that do this, but like providing the backend for it as a service is definitely a SaaS route we can take. Um, and you would be more like interested in this model versus the game making the games ourselves. But why don't we just be the platform or the tool? That might be a better option for us. Definitely. I think I think in my head it just makes sense to offer both because they're both we can do our own use case, but why not lend it out too? Because that's what a lot of companies do. They use their own tools, but they also sell the tool that they use. Like, for example, like Riot Games, League of Legends, TFT, they use their own intellectual property, but they're leasing it out. This is common with like a lot of publishers, is like they're letting other game studios use their world and their this is what you call intellectual property in gaming video games, but, like, they get a cut of whatever if you decide to use their image, which is the same as franchising for video games, right? Like, basically, you're able to use Riot's name, characters, and story, but they get a cut of whatever you make, but you can make a new game using that. Same same with us, maybe we get a cut instead, that would be a good model, yeah, I don't know, like, what do you think? I mean, this is my job to figure out, but of course, like, I'll kinda brainstorm with you, like, uh yep. Well, as soon as you're done, I will hop on a call with Brian. He has to find schedule time with, his boss, and then if the game is good enough, they're gonna run it live. I don't know how quick the turnaround time for that is, but, um, yeah, it's really up to Tribe, right? Like, So, I mean, I can get on a call with Brian as soon as you're done, like, one day turnaround, and I can show them the game, and after that, it's in their hands. So I would say, like, a week in my head, it would take a week to show try his boss to make a decision, and then maybe another week or 2 to schedule the stream. Um, but then from there, it's like, yeah, things move a little slower when it's business to business, right? Like, but then obviously the returns are greater because they have more money and they're bigger clients. So things move slower when it's organizational. Like this isn't dealing with a personal customer or business to customer moves faster, but business to business moves slower, but has much more stability when you build it up. So like to answer your question, I guess maybe like 2 weeks turnaround, 2 to 3 weeks. But like in between, obviously, it's not like we have to keep doing work. It's like, you're free to, we can just work on our processes or you can work on whatever you want, like freelancing, which is kind of the beauty like of this. So like, yeah, hopefully that kind of works out for you. Yeah, definitely. If it goes well, they do want another one. And then they've been trying to, or they wanted to pitch more to their sponsors. I told you about the Discord one, right? Like, we were, they actually did try to sell a 4 episode. So that would have been 4 games for the year, like a yearly package with Discord for like I think it was like a $30,000 deal. We would have gotten like 25,000 out of it for 4 games, which is not the greatest amount of profit, but it's a start, right? But I think the reason Tribe told me that Discord didn't buy it was because they were interested, but they just didn't know what it was and they didn't have any case studies or examples to go off of. And again, this goes back to like you can't sell something that people don't understand. So, um yeah, I mean, all it goes back to that first product. Like if we, if we went strong on it, we would have been in a good spot, but it's okay. Like part of the process is failure. Like now you really strengthened your dev skills. And like there's like I said, like failure is expected. Like we should plan for failure because it's impossible to have a smooth ride all the way to the finish. Like I don't think anyone has had that in the history of startups. So yeah, let me know what you think about all that. I mean, it all just depends on how good our product is and how well it does. So I think how well you build it obviously is one thing, but how well I designed it and my theory or my hypothesis on whether this kind of game would be popular on the market is going to be tested soon. So like, do people actually want to play this kind of game? Is where it tests my expertise on live streaming. And we'll find out soon. That's awesome, man. Like, what changed for you? Like, Yeah, that's that's awesome. Like a lot of, the biggest hump is getting started. So like what you did is what a lot of people use as like a very good tip is, just start small and then let it snowball itself. Like just start for 5 or 10 minutes, and then if it keeps going, it keeps going, and then if it doesn't, it's like the same concept of people saying like if you want to be a great writer, what you do is you write a little bit every day. And you don't write in one sitting like 10 hours and study writing to be great. You write 5-10 minutes a day. Um, and let it snowball. Like obviously those 5-10 minute sessions can turn into more if you're feeling inspired. Sometimes they won't, sometimes they will, but the most important thing is you force yourself to start small. So yeah, I mean that's awesome. Like I'm super happy that you're found a new inspiration. But um yeah, like I'm taking to all the things you sent into account. I think we can create a SaaS out of this as well. One of the truly passive things like that I mentioned, but I said it was rare, but, like, I said it before, like, is digital products such as ebooks, content, or, for video games, a popular one is, assets, like asset stores. Once you create them, they last a long time. You do have to update because Unity, naturally updates for software assets, but, like, those people who make engines, like, that is their entire revenue, like, person who or the company who made top-down engine, I'm sure, like, that's one of their bread and butter revenues. So, if we price, I don't know how we would price it. Still have to think about that because this one's a lifetime cost on our end, and I don't think it makes sense to do a flat fee, right? Like, well, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Like, it doesn't make. Yeah, or I meant like a flat recurring fee. So like, it's recurring fee or percentage rev fee. Like, those are the two options. So month or like flat recurring or yeah, scaling recurring are the two options here, or scaling one time. Yeah, that. Gotcha, yeah. Those ones get tricky though with like how it's reported and how it's paid out. For sure. Yeah, that gets really tricky. I mean, it could work, but if we were to explore flat, like a flat recurring fee, w- what would cover our bases? Like nothing would really cover our bases if the game goes viral, right? Because we end up uh with the server cost bill if it goes viral for like 1 million. Like, users, like, we can't afford that, right? Yeah, so it wouldn't make sense to, like, give this out for, like, $100 a month even because, if it goes viral, which we should definitely bet on, it's gonna hurt us, like, a lot. Like, we're gonna lose money, which is never good. So, I mean, maybe what we can do is charge on a per usage basis. Is there a way to track which clients use how much of our server and how much of the costs? Gotcha, but, like, on DigitalOcean's end or whatever server we decide if we switch to AWS, like, how do we separate those costs, like, per user? Or not per user, but, like, per you know what I mean, right? Like, per client. Okay, so, like, would a credit model make sense? Kinda like CAPTCHA, where you kinda pay on a per usage basis? Is that better than a do you know what I mean by that? Like right. Okay. Well, I'll work out the details, but, um, I guess we can I think I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but, like, I think I need to figure out how easy would this be for a developer to integrate into their game? Like, if you write documentation for how to use our server system, do you think, like, most people would be able to use it? Gotcha. And not even for games, but can we open this to any kind of application? Like gotcha. So, would it make more sense to not even host it, but, like, to give out the server code and people host their own? Is that kind of a bad model? That might be bad, right? Okay. It's better just to because most things, they don't sell I don't know a lot of applications that kinda sell the service where they host on another a well, maybe there is a lot, maybe I'm wrong, actually. I think I'm wrong there, but, like, for example, Sendy, they gave the you wouldn't give the code, but you give, like, the .exe or they gave the application itself. They didn't give they don't host it on their own server and do it as a service. Is there somewhere where we can do something similar where maybe not the source code, but, like, some kinda installation or okay, because if we're able to do that, then we can sell the the asset as a flat fee instead. But again, I don't know which way makes the most sense. Like, I'm just trying to think from our potential users' point of view. I don't know how I would feel like having our servers hosted on, someone by this a third party. Um, I think it would make much more sense to hire someone to make this thing for themselves. Like, how hard is it to make this server system? Because, like, a lot of these games already know how to make Twitch plays or Twitch chat integrated stuff. Like, is it that hard to do it? Because there's a lot of Git repositories on how to do it as well, right? Yeah, so what's the difference between, like, me finding remember the bot I showed you when we first met, like, with the movies, like, that did the like, what's the difference between getting something off Git like that, which I think I still have the link for that, but, like and then installing it myself versus, like, our system or our service, like, why would I use our service if I was, like, a decent developer? Yeah, yeah, and I would say Maxi's on the lower end, entry level, because he's $15 an hour and he just graduated college, Gotcha. Well, I think it doesn't matter, like, I think our this still has a lot of utility because most game developers are on the lower end of for like a lot, not most, but a lot. Like, the whole point of gaming is to make it accessible, game assets to make it accessible to the lowest. Like you wouldn't buy a game engine, top-down 2D engine if you were like, an A plus programmer. Like you would only buy it, if you had weaker programming skills or unless you wanted to save time. Like this one is the same thing. Like it would save you time. um, so I think it still has utility for all levels of programming. Just need to find the right model, the right customer, and we'd be opening up a new market, so we have to create that ourselves. But I think there is a use case because I was talking with Alec the other day, just because like I keep up with people, but he's making a game with Eric, if you remember Eric, the guy who made our sounds. So him and Eric, they created a game that they're releasing soon. They asked me about like tips to kind of promote their game on Twitch because obviously my knowledge is with Twitch. I actually my company works for them. And I recommended like yeah, just like talk to streamers and the whole nine yards. But like one thing I did mention that was unique piece of advice was you can make a Twitch plays version of your game, um, and kind of use that to promote it like, there's a game called Punch Club. If you want, you can look it up, Punch Club Case Study. Um, yes. Punch Club, Twitch plays Punch Club. I think you can type in Twitch plays Punch Club.
What is up, y'all?
So what they did was like, um, here's a sentence that's perfectly sums it up, but wait, let me send it to you. Punch Club was actually released in a quite unique way. Twitch Chat had to beat a pre-release version of the game before it was officially released to the public. And then this is basically a Twitch Plays version of the game. And then if they were able to beat it, then the game would release. And that kind of like created a lot of hype and press around the game. I think the game was getting like somewhere between 3 to 10,000 viewers every day until it was beat. I think it got beaten like less than 3 days or something, but um, that was like free advertising for the game, and then it helped them make a success. So, and this is the only game to ever do this kind of advertising so far. So again, like if we were make to make this accessible to any game developer out there, that'd be huge. Um, but again, I don't know how feasible that is, or because if someone like Punch Club already made or did that, maybe they didn't think of the idea, but like I'm just wondering, like why something like this hasn't been created yet. But maybe it's just that no one wanted to do it. Um, no, could you explain a little more? Gotcha. Yeah, those are definitely two possibilities. But them not believing it is kind of odd because their whole success was like created from this idea. So yeah, I think I think it's two reasons: too much work, or they didn't think of this model where they can create an asset for it. Like oftentimes, maybe they're just like too focused on their own game. So like they only thought to use it for their own game and not to create a whole revenue stream out of this. Um, you can see the same with like any mainstream game, right? Like popular games such as I don't know any games but like for example, well I know Riot's finally releasing their IP, but like why don't the most popular games sell their assets on the asset store? Maybe they just again they probably just don't want other people to have that access, or they just didn't think to give their create do that work extra work to create a new revenue stream. So oftentimes, it's just like people don't want to do it because they didn't think of it, or like you said, it's too much work. So it's probably one of those two. But yeah, it's interesting. Like this is a great case study of like an example of a game that was very mediocre, but elevated itself using this feature. And this feature wasn't used in the final copy. It's just they had a one copy used for a Twitch plays to promote their game. Obviously, they can have our engine could be used either way if they want to use that in the final version of their game. But yeah, like it's a good model. I just think we need to figure out the tech side how it works and the revenue model, and then we'll be golden. Yeah. Hmm. Definitely. Cool. Well, yeah, I think what we do now is we just continue to use it for what we intended, our own use case with these branded experiences, but we obviously kind of keep those options open to use it as an asset for revenue. And these kind of things always happen with every startup. Like you'll find that actually, I think probably 90% plus of startups pivot at the end of the day. Like not pivot, but like, they kind of they make swings to something similar or the end product definitely changes. So like again, it's just continuing to work out through our failures and learning things and discoverability where we kind of find success. So like, if we keep working, we find out that this one, not a lot of people use it. We probably will find out something from that. Once we start talking to users, building a product, we'll probably find another insight that will kind of change this product even more. So yeah, it's all at the end of the day, it's just about keep going. Cool. Hopefully, yeah, that gives you more inspiration to and motivation to keep going. But um, yeah, like I'm excited to do this original model that we know works from my company's experience and creating an even new thing like a platform or a tool. So yeah, just creating ways to make more revenue. That's awesome. So did you kind of stop with the Shoebot and the Algo or did you I know you did stop, but like we're discontinuing those, right? Like cool. Yeah, fine with me. Um Again, I just wanted to give you the freedom at the end of the day. So you kind of choose what you want to work on tech wise, but I can only give you my recommendations on which one has the best chance for revenue long term. And yeah, you already know my stance on that. So okay. Anything else you wanted to discuss? No, because I work. I'm not supposed to be working on this during. I should show you actually too. That reminds me. I just got the written consent from my boss today. I will show you. So let me share my screen. I can forward you the email too if you want, but either way, it's okay. Can you see that? Yes, I did. It was a requirement to get this written off. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess I forgot to tell you, but yeah, I showed him the game to kind of get proof. We went through a process with like written mutual NDAs and stuff like that, but I got all the lawyer stuff settled. Showed him. So as long as I follow these conditions, obviously don't work on this during work hours. Performance not expected to suffer. Just very standard procedures. Don't use my Twitch access or knowledge to solicit or engage with Twitch personnel or clients, but that's fine. And then yeah, you can see C-suite. He's pretty high up, and then Grab Labs, company I work for. So just getting confirmation. This was sent out today about what it is, and this should cover our grounds. So yeah, didn't want to just. I know I've been saying I've been working on it, but these things kind of take a long time, right? And you have to do it right because you mess up, you kind of lose your idea to someone else. Got to protect it closely. So yeah, just didn't want you to feel like I'm not really doing much, but I have been kind of working on other things. Um, so now we're ready to kind of create an LLC at any time, but I don't think there's a need to unless once we release our first game. So Um, and again, like this is only because we have trust and we worked together for a long time. Um, of course, anytime you feel like you needed more than a verbal agreement, be happy to kind of sit down and work through that. But yeah, like what we agreed, 55-45, I think still works. And we could talk about it if we want to change that on your end, but um, cool. Um, yeah, so and I'm gonna start using Notion more to kind of nail down our processes, mapping out our futures with documentation or our future with documentation. I just haven't had a lot of time lately, but I should start getting more time soon uh, to start doing these things, and then yeah, I'll just doing better planning. It's just there was no point for me to do it before because there was uncertainty about you continuing with the startup. So the higher priority was me to find someone if you were to leave. Um, but because I was waiting with you for you basically, so I haven't been able to work on organizational things. But if you know we decide to go for it, I can continue to work on that. But yeah, I can talk a little bit more about what happened when I showed my boss. I forgot to mention it to you, but he thought it was really cool. A lot of potential for the idea. Um, he even gave a recommendation on what he thought would work is like shorter forms of this game. He was thinking more along the lines of like 2 to 5 minutes without the dialogue, the story, and the world map, and just the minigame portions. Because he thinks like short form would be better, easier for us to make, of course, but like easier for brands to accept and play because there's not a lot of clearance on story and art. But um, arguable. It's a good recommendation. I do agree with some of it. It has its pros and cons, but I do think like most of our charm and most of our strength comes from all those other parts are the templated parts. So kind of worrisome if we have to build from scratch every single time because that's if we take out the writing, the story, the world map, like that our game is just the mini games, and that's the only part that we have to make from scratch, and that's bad. But yeah, what were you saying? Yeah, that's great. I think to keep it safe, we're still gonna be cutting scope for the next ones. Like that was always what we talked about. This one was very big in scope, but um maybe in the future a better way to approach things would be like we prototype types of games to make sure we can do it, and then we can start pitching those ideas. So like if we want in the future to make a 3D shooter, we prototype it ourselves on the side before we're able to offer that. We should prototype like platformers before we offer that. So I don't know how you feel about that, prototyping without guaranteed revenue because that would be the safer way to do it in my head instead of getting a sale and then building for it and we run into a road bump. Okay. Um so let's just say, things work out, we get a next one. They want a platformer. Um Do you still think we should I think we should still utilize, another dev talent for Unity specific things, but do you feel that way? Like getting Maxi or a Maxi type of person to help out with the engine stuff? Cool, but again, it's not about the complexity of it's about the polish, right? Like polish is what matters with these types of products. It doesn't have to be like complicated per se, but it just has to feel right and be right. Um, and that's something like that you get from just experience and knowledge of the engine. I'm not saying you can't do it, but like it, there's no reason to not utilize. It's within budget to hire, Maxi or a person like Maxi. Um, yeah, okay, yeah, we can approach it. You're the dev, so like you kind of decide these processes, but yeah, I'll kind of see if it works for the biz side. Um, and we could talk more about it, but let's get there first. Okay. Any other thoughts? Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. I love the server stuff that you worked on, and it looks super clean, man. Like we just get a front end developer or designer to clean it up. It'll look like a A tier, so software service. So yeah, like we just clean up the UI on the website. It'll look awesome. Um, cool. I'll see you tomorrow then. Looks like you're good to go in the game. Do you still remember all the details on like how it should work and stuff? Like because it's been so long. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Agreed. And a lot of testing too, because stability is the most important part, I would say. Like the latest version that we called complete, it crashed like in a couple of cases. Not crashed, but it got stuck in scenes where things wouldn't populate. You know what I'm talking about, right? The bug. Um, the dialogue scenes would show up with no text in them and you couldn't move forward. So like just making sure there's no critical bugs is the most important part. There could be small things that we can ignore. But it just has to be a stable version, and then we can have it live. I don't think it doesn't have to be perfect because they're not paying for this one. So let's not get too caught up on perfection. But of course, gonna be hard because I know you're a perfectionist. But um, just do your best to not go down a rabbit hole. Okay, I think that should be good. Really good job with the server stuff. But then I'll see you tomorrow. All right, man. Later.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Okay, so I've shared a link, a Jamboard link with you. You explain me what the problem, and then we'll discuss. Yeah, you have exactly. So I want to know what exactly is the problem, and then what have you done? Yeah, sure. Okay, no problem. No problem. Take your time. Mhm. Mhm. Just one minute. So to understand this problem, first question I have is that is this is opposite of what we do in tic tac toe? Is that correct? Yeah, fine, wonderful. The second thing which we have in this problem, as I read in the statement, is that it's saying that both players are going to play optimally. So now we need to define what is the meaning of optimal here before we can argue about the correctness of your algorithm. So all you are saying is that if both players are going to play optimally, then you are saying there is no way there is any solution for any n except n equal to 1. Is that correct statement? Okay, wonderful. So beyond n equal to 1, if players are going to play optimally, it's always going to be a draw. Excellent. So now the question is what we mean by optimal here. How do you define a player to be playing optimally? Is the next challenge we have. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Okay, no, no, we'll come to that particular thing in a minute. So I asked you a question about this proof for statement where graph with n nodes has and has n minus one edges is a tree. And you said that you have seen this proof, induction based proof, I believe. Yeah, we see the problem with the problem I'm trying to tell you is that in graphs when you do induction that induction is very different from induction which is done in let's say other scenarios. So what you are trying to do is that you are saying that okay, you have a grid of say size n cross n, and then from this you are trying to now talk about induction based proof, and then you are saying that I will make it n cross n, n plus 1 cross n plus 1. Yeah. Now, this particular idea in case of graph, this is a problematic idea, right? The reason is that y- how do you say that this is the only way? So you will have the argument that here there is no solution, and then you will argue that this is also have going to have no solution. That's the way I think you would like to proceed. Is that correct? Yeah, but then I think what you are trying to do is that if you have this n cross n grid and then you move to n plus 1 cross n plus 1 grid, in that case, I think you are going to focus on the shaded area which I have done here. Is that correct? Yeah, but this is difficult to accept. The reason is that you are making an assumption about so in this part, or rather let me say that here you have a configuration, and it's one of the configuration among many configurations, and then you are going to move to this one where this is not the only way you can get n plus 1. I can also think about taking this particular thing and introduce something in the middle. Yeah, I think somewhere connection got lost. Okay. So I was saying that the way. Can you explain me if you have seen this proof for graph where you have n nodes and n minus one edges, then it's going to be tree. How do you prove this statement using induction? Then I will be able to explain you this issue which we have with your proof. Right. Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Right. Okay. 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 Mhm. So here, what you are saying that okay. So you are directly talking about the induction step here. So you are saying that okay, you have a graph with k vertices, and then what is the next statement? Right. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Very nice. So I completely agree with whatever you have done, and so I was generally what people students generally do is that they take when they are doing induction here, they will say that let me take a graph of k minus 1 vertices which has k minus 2 edges, it's a tree, and I will now add one more vertex to this graph. So that is not correct way of doing it. So I see you can see my idea. So you so typically you do this for number related things that and then you would like to proceed in the same fashion that okay, assume that I have a graph with k minus 1 nodes, and let me try to introduce one node here, and then you start arguing. So this particular approach is not going to work for graph. This is incorrect. And in fact, this is exactly what you are trying to do in your proof, where you are trying to go from n cross n to n plus one cross n plus. Because essentially, what you have is a grid graph. So we have here a grid graph, and then in this grid graph, you are going trying to go from a certain configuration to other configuration. So this proof is a problematic proof. In fact, it is not going to it's not I mean it's not going to prove whatever you want to prove, because moving from n cross n to n plus 1 cross n plus 1, this is not the only way you can do that. Let me you can consider this particular idea that okay, if this is n cross n, and then first I split into two parts, and then I introduce one more column here, and then I somewhere again I will split into again this two part, and then I introduce one row here. Thereby I will get n plus 1 cross n plus 1 grid again. Now how do you argue? Because this is another way of, so this is basically what the induction that we are talking about here is. Basically we are working on structure. So your usual class 12, that whatever you have studied, you have numbers, there has to be some property before we can apply induction on the set. So generally numbers, of course, these are traditional things which the properties anyway there, so that means induction is applicable here. But now you are applying induction on not numbers, but you are applying induction on a structure, which structure is a grid here, and it is a grid graph. So grid graph is basically you have this kind of thing. Okay, so it's exactly the way you understand grid. So this is a grid graph. And now, how do you make a bigger grid from this one? There are many ways I can create a new grid. Of course, the final structure is going to be same, but then every possible way of getting a new grid, you have to argue that your argument is going to be applicable for every such construction, which is anyway not feasible for you to do that. So the way you have explained your tree proof, what you have done is that, so recall the stark difference between the proof which you have done for tree and the proof which you have done here. In the case of tree, you are very meticulous. You are saying that, okay, let me start with a graph with k nodes and it has k minus 1 edges. And then you are saying that there are two possibilities. Either this is a tree, if it is a tree, then you are done. But if it is not a tree, then something else is going to happen. So you are not moving, you are not going for k minus 1 to k. Rather, you are starting with, when you are applying induction, you are starting with this particular scenario. And then at some point of time, when you will be required to argue about k minus 1, you will be using your induction hypothesis. So your direction of work is in the reverse direction. You are not coming from here to here. Whereas now what you have done in your problem, you have moved from n cross n to n plus 1 cross n plus 1. And this is where the problem is. This is not going to work out in graph theory. You will have to somehow move from here to here, or you will have to figure out another way of doing it. So that's one objection I have to your to way of proving things. And so, by the way, which journal did you submit this paper to? Okay. No, don't worry, that's fine. But then the paper, a journal paper requires a lot of work. You need to talk about literature survey, what others have done. You have to argue about or think, also mention about what other related problems are there and what is the status of that. So there is an entire section on related work. But that is all secondary part. Once you have solved a problem, and then you decide that it has enough merit, then you can then think about that related work and all that. So basically a literature survey part is also required, and then the structure has to be fixed and all that. But before we move on to those things, we have to see whether your proof is indeed correct or not. Now let me present a different view for your problem, and then you see whether it encapsulates what you are trying to solve. So you have a grid graph. So I'm going to draw it like this. And since you have your grid has same number of rows and columns, so um, it's going to be okay. So I believe that this exactly is so we now in the nodes we are going to put this cross mark or the other symbol, tick mark symbol. Yeah, so this is what your grid graph is. Like it's the same thing, whatever you are doing here. You can visualize this, right? Yeah, so now I'm putting this as a node here. Now what you want is that basically the winning thing is related with suppose somebody wants to win, he has to put something here and then possibly here or here, something like that. But this node, if you think from the color point of view, then whatever color you have put, you can put the same color here, but then you must put a different color here. Okay, so if you think like that, then uh, from that perspective, you have to modify this particular graph to capture the modeling part. So what you want is that these two things are related, these two are related, these two are related, and these two are related. And similarly, this is related with this one. This is related. Sorry. So this. Let me erase this. Can you see why am I drawing these edges? Wonderful. So now this particular thing, this thing. So now this is same thing is going to happen here also. This one is going to be, this one is going to be there, and this one is going to be there. And similarly, you will be doing for this one and all that. So this is going to become a regular graph. where the degree of each vertex is going to be identical in your graph. So it has no longer remained a grid graph, it has become more. And what you want is that you want to do to play the color game in this graph. And then you want to argue that there is no way if two players are alternating in coloring. So if the first player is putting a color green here, so you have suppose green color and red color. So first player has put green color. This first player has no advantage in putting colors in these things. These nodes where it has an edge adjacent sorry node to it, right? So from this node, this fellow who has put green here, he has absolutely no advantage to put green here in this particular node. It is not going to help him at all. So this is where what the idea behind this modeling is. And now the other player can, of course, put say red color here, and then the player who has to put next green color, he has to find a node such that there is no green color adjacent to it. So possibly say this one is can be put as green. Why? Because to this node there is no node which has green color in it. And similarly, so the next time when green comes, green will not be able. So this is not going to work out. Why? Because from this node you will have an edge here. So for green there is no advantage in putting green here. And now so green and red are alternating. And then you are saying that if they alternate, there is absolutely no way that you can color this graph. Okay, and the legality of the color is that no adjacent node should have same color. Okay, so that's the legal part. So you can color this graph, but then you are bound to color in such a way that after when you will find two nodes which are adjacent to each other will be colored with the same color. So a little bit more thinking is required, and then you can formulate it this way. You can either do this, or you can think about the way you have done things. You are trying to move from n cross to this one. We don't do this way. You will have to move from this place to this place, and then see how the way you are doing for trees, and then see if you can argue. And before even you do that, it might be worth putting in effort to see if there is existing work in this kind of thing. So existing literature is extremely important to search for, because at the end you don't want to rediscover something, because anyway it's not going to be accepted by anyone. And then we also do literature survey in order to respect other people, whatever effort they have put it in past. So for both reasons, we study what has been done. And I'm very sure, although I've not looked into literature about these problems. I don't work in graph theory, even I've stopped working in graph theory for quite some time. But I believe that there might be very similar problems on color games, graph coloring games, two-player games basically. I'm referring to, these are all two-player games. So first is two-player, and then you are doing coloring. And I'm very sure there must be at least few games, and people would have published papers in this. And then we can see how they have worked out their solution, what techniques they have used, and then you can come back to this one. Think like so. Just give a thought. Don't make up your mind immediately, and then so you require to ensure that no significant work has been done, or any existing technique is not directly applicable here, and something innovative is required in order to solve this problem, and then only it's worth talking about a journal. Other alternative is even if suppose it turns out that okay, this is not a very great result, but it is indeed interesting, then you can think about submitting to a conference. There are many conferences that are taking place in India also. So you can submit to a conference, and then you can present your work, hope that COVID will be over soon, and you can travel in India to a place and then present your work where some 20 people will listen to your work, and then they will be able to give feedback also. So that's how we work. I'm telling, I mean, although you are too young now, But I'm telling you that okay, this is how we work in scientific field, where we look at past work, trying to see what ideas are useful, and do we really require to think about this problem afresh, and no existing idea can be directly used and things like that. And that's how in even in conference paper also you will be having introduction, you will have literature survey, then you will talk about literature survey is basically related work, and then you will pose your problem, what techniques, and your proof is going to be done in a very systematic manner, small result, small lemmas and all that, and then that will add up to your main work rather than your long single 2 page 3 page proof. That's not desirable. You divide your argument into a small argument so that people can visualize that, oh, this small statement, oh, this is correct, oh, this is correct. So when once those small steps are seen to be correct, people have no difficulty in accepting. So finally, proof is a social process. I'm telling you. So the community has to accept your proof, and the way to convince them is by doing small steps. Okay, do you agree with this one? They'll say yeah. Do you agree with this one? Yeah, and then so on and so forth. So if you go back to your proof or your tree problem where you have n nodes and n minus one edges, you will realize that you will require some sub results there also. You said that if there's a cycle, then something else is going to happen and all that. So that's a sub result. Basically, you are assuming something, and that also requires to be proved. So you see, when you start arguing, then you will start seeing that okay, some gaps are there, and then you that become your sub lemma or sub results, small results put together. Then, although tree problem looks like very simple statement, but then still it requires two or three sub results before you can jump into final conclusion. So that's the point I'm trying to make here. So do a little bit of this, and then you can come back and then write to me whatever your thoughts are. You can of course write anytime. I'm mostly available on almost all days, and Telegram is something which I'm generally will be able to give immediate feedback to you. Okay, yeah, fine. So got it, everything. Okay, great. Okay, so how? Your 12th you have finished your 11th, you said. And how are your results till so far till 11? Okay. Okay. So now the reason I'm asking you this question is that generally I do not respond to emails like you have sent. The reason is I don't want you to divert. Your main focus should be your school studies. You should not miss classes. Very important. You should remain focused. This all work will eventually come. So your focus should remain on your school studies and or your own health, physical health, mental health. You should go out and play football, whatever you want, everything. It's very important at your age to focus on these aspects. This all you do it fine, but this should be your not taking your full time and all that. Do you understand? Yeah, because it should not happen that your 12th class results are suffering because of your focusing. Because these kind of problems are very, I mean, you will end up doing a lot of, I mean, spending a lot of time on this. And then if it affects your other thing, then your eventual goal is not going to be fulfilled. Yeah. So remain very focused on your health, very important. First is health. Second is your school studies. And then comes this part. Okay, so I'm reminding you. So it's your responsibility. Otherwise, tomorrow you may say that, oh no, no, I'm working on this great problem, and then everything else is sacrificed. That should not be the case. Hmm? Okay, so your parents are aware of this. I mean, you are interested in mathematics and all that. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Very nice. So your mother, she's working somewhere? Wonderful, very nice. Your dad? Okay, oh, wonderful, very nice. Okay, so go ahead and think about it, but take care of your academics, regular academics, and your health. Okay? Okay, great. Yeah, we'll talk sometime again when you have some more ideas. Yeah, sure. Bye bye. Take care. Bye.